If you Google Pakistan right now, the first page will show you bombings, floods, and political crises. The images will be dust, rubble, and displacement. Now close that tab, because Pakistan also has a lake that turned turquoise overnight when a landslide dammed a river. A desert at 2,000 metres where snow settles on sand dunes every winter. A fort with 40 bastions standing alone in the middle of nowhere since the 9th century. A bridge made of rope and rotting wood that is the only way across a gorge carved over 40 million years. It has cherry blossoms in spring. Polo matches at 3,700 metres. And a valley so quiet that the loudest sound is your own breathing. None of this is on the first page. None of it made the headlines. But all of it is real. And all of it is in this film. This is Pakistan, the version that Google hasn't indexed yet. Heaven hiding inside hell. $20 million people. That is Karachi, Pakistan's largest city and its gateway to the Arabian Sea. From the air, it looks less like a city and more like a living organism, spreading in every direction without pause or pattern. The density is staggering. Buildings press against buildings, rooftops stacked with water tanks and satellite dishes. Streets carved into the concrete like veins carrying an endless current of rickshaws, motorcycles and overloaded buses. Flyovers loop over roundabouts. Intersections pulse with traffic that follows no visible rule, yet somehow keeps moving. This is a city that was never designed. It simply grew. In 1947, Karachi had fewer than 500,000 people. Today, it holds 20 million, layered over decades from a colonial port town into one of the largest urban centres on Earth. At night, Karachi reveals another face. Mosque minarets glow against a sky of city lights. The Empress Market Clock Tower, a relic of the British Raj, still stands at the centre of Sadr, surrounded by the hum of vendors and the press of crowds. Beyond the residential maze lies Karachi's industrial spine. Cement factories trail dark plumes into the sky. The railway yards stretch for kilometres, rows of rusting freight cars that once connected this port to the heart of the subcontinent. And then a sharp contrast. Bahria Town, a planned suburban development where identical houses line perfect streets, palm trees stand in formation, and solar panels catch the desert sun. A vision of order imposed on a city that has never known it. But Karachi is not only concrete and steel. Its coastline stretches along the Arabian Sea, where Seaview Beach fills with thousands on weekends. Families, camel riders, and food carts crowding the sand. At Hawke's Bay, the shore meets green mangrove forests that filter into quiet estuaries. These mangroves are among the largest urban mangrove systems in the world, a hidden ecosystem thriving inside a megacity though. Boardwalks cut through the canopy where the air shifts from exhaust to salt and mud. It is the first hint that Pakistan holds far more than its surface reveals. In 2022, the monsoon did not stop. For weeks, rain fell across Sindh and Punjab until 1/3 of Pakistan lay underwater. In towns like Dhaka, floodwaters turned red with earth, swallowing homes and leaving behind a landscape that looked less like a country and more like a wound. Tent cities rose on every patch of high ground. In Maha and Meha, entire neighbourhoods sat submerged, while families sheltered metres away under white canvas. 33 million people were displaced, a number larger than the population of most countries. This is the paradox of the Indus Plain. The very water that destroyed also sustains. The same floodwaters that drowned Sindh's villages replenished its soil, just as they have for 5,000 years. At Sukkur, a barrage built in 1932 spans the Indus River. An engineering colossus that channels water into canals, feeding millions of hectares of farmland across Sindh. Without it, the province would be desert. South of the barrage, the land turned green. Date palms stretch in formation around Kayapur, their canopy so dense it darkens the roads below. Highways cut through plantations where trucks loaded with fruit crawl between walls of leaves. Further east, the geometry changes. Rice paddies divide the earth into mirrored grids across Golaki, while in Punjab, golden wheat fields ripple under the blades of combine harvesters. Punjab alone produces enough grain to feed the nation. And in the forgotten corners, ruins of ancient forts crumble on sand islands in the Chotiari Reservoir. Salt lakes shimmer white across the Sangha Desert. Layers upon layers, buried beneath the headlines, waiting to be seen. Balochistan, covers 44% of Pakistan's land. Yet only 5% of the population lives here. Roads stretch for hundreds of kilometres with nothing on either side but dust, rock and silence. A lone bus on a desert highway becomes the only proof that anyone passes through it all. Along the Makran coast, the landscape splits in two turquoise ocean on one side, sand-coloured mountains carved by millennia of wind on the other. The Makran coastal highway traces this edge, winding through Hingol National Park, where geological formations rise like the ruins of another planet. Where the Arabian Sea meets sheer cliffs, the coast feels like the end of the world. And in a sense, it is. At Gadani, one of the largest shipbreaking yards on Earth, ocean freighters are dragged onto the sand to be dismantled piece by piece. A graveyard where steel giants come to die. Far to the east, another kind of monument rises from the sand. Darawar fought 40 bastions, walls towering 30 metres high. Originally built by a Hindu Rajput ruler in the 9th century and later fortified by the Abbasi Nawabs of Bahawalpur. At golden hour, the sun turns its clay bricks to fire and the fortress glows against an empty horizon. Small villages cluster in its shadow, unchanged for generations. Elsewhere, decorated trucks grind along CPEC roads, carved through the Sulaymanon Mountains, new infrastructure pushing into ancient terrain. In Balochistan, nothing is convenient. But everything is raw, untouched, and unmistakably real. Lahore is Pakistan's cultural heart. At its centre stands the Badshahi Mosque, built in 1673 under Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. Its red sandstone walls and white marble domes make it one of the largest and most striking mosques on earth. The courtyard alone can hold 100,000 worshippers. Nearby, the crumbling Haveli of now Nihal Singh tells a different chapter. Its faded frescoes peeling under neglect, a Sikh-era mansion dissolving into the modern city around it. A few kilometres away, Minar-e-Pakistan rises from a star-shaped plaza, the site where Pakistan's independence was first demanded in 1940. South of Lahore lies Multan, the city of saints. The tomb of Shah Rukni Alam crowns its skyline, a white dome resting on centuries-old brickwork, drawing Sufi pilgrims from across the subcontinent. Multan may be one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in South Asia. Then there is Islamabad, a complete departure. Pakistan's capital was designed from scratch in the 1960s, its grid of numbered sectors carved into the foothills of the Margalla Hills. Faisal Mosque sits at its northern edge, a geometric cascade of white concrete and marble. That looks less like a place of worship and more like a spacecraft resting against the mountains. Modern towers rise beside green boulevards. The Pakistan Monument arcs above a landscaped plaza where families stroll on weekends. It is a different Pakistan planned, orderly, aspirational. But even here, the ancient and the modern share the same soil. The Swat River cuts through mountains so green they seem painted. This valley was once called the Switzerland of Pakistan, a place of orchards, pine forests, and turquoise water winding between terraced slopes. In the late 2000s, the Taliban seized control. Schools were burned. Music was banned. The valley fell silent, but Pakistan reclaimed it, and today, Swat breathes again. Snow-dusted peaks rise above villages where children walk to school along rivers that have not stopped flowing. At Gab and Jabba, green slopes spill down to quiet hamlets where shepherds move between meadows. In Kalam, a Ferris wheel turns lazily beside the river, a small gesture of normalcy in a place that fought hard for it. Deeper into the Hindu Kush, a bridge spans a canyon in Kumrat Valley, connecting one cliff face to another above a drop that takes the breath away. In spring, orchards explode into blossom-white petals against snow-capped ridges, rice paddies shimmering between terraced hillsides. At Balochistan, the valley narrows and the road begins to climb. Muzaffarabad sits wedged between mountains, a city that rebuilt itself after the 2005 earthquake that killed over 73,000 people across northern Pakistan. From here, the ascent into Pakistan's high north truly begins, and the landscape is about to change completely. The Karakoram highway took 20 years to build and claimed the lives of over 800 workers. Pakistani and Chinese engineers blasting through some of the most unstable geology on the planet. It remains the highest paved international road on Earth. At Babasar Pass, the road climbs to over 4,000 metres. Switchbacks carve into mountainsides dusted with snow, and a single vehicle on the ribbon of asphalt looks less like transportation and more like a prayer. Then comes Fairy Meadows Road, widely considered one of the most dangerous roads in the world. Open-top jeeps grind along gravel ledges cut into bare cliff faces. There are no guardrails. The drop is hundreds of metres. Yet at the end of this road waits a meadow, and behind it, Nanga Parbat. The Killer Mountain, at 8,126 metres, Nanga Parbat is the 9th highest peak on Earth and one of the deadliest to climb. From the meadow below, it fills the sky. A wall of ice and rock so vast, it does not look like something of this world. The Jaglot Skardu Road follows the Indus River through gorges where glacial water runs pale green beneath sheer cliff walls. The road has been carved, blasted, and rebuilt so many times that it exists as much through stubbornness as engineering. At Shandur Pass, 3,700 metres, the world's highest polo ground stretches across an alpine plateau. Each summer, teams from Chitral and Gilgit ride here to compete in a tradition that predates borders. Shandur Lake sits nearby, half hidden in cloud. Villagers cling to rock faces along the old Silk Road, their stone walls blending into the mountain itself. Suspension bridges swing over rivers that have carved these canyons for millennia. Life here has always been vertical. With every kilometre gained in altitude, the landscape transforms. Rivers shift from brown to emerald. Peaks sharpen. The air thins. And somewhere ahead, past the last switchback, Hunza Valley is waiting. And then Hunza, sitting at 2,500 metres in the heart of the Karakoram. Hunza Valley was its own kingdom until 1974. A place so remote that for centuries the outside world barely knew it existed. The Hunza River runs through its centre, a ribbon of turquoise cutting between stone walls and terraced orchards. From the air, the valley unfolds in layers, apricot and apple orchards climbing the slopes. Stone houses with slate roofs clustered on ridges. And behind everything, the white teeth of the Karakoram skyline. In autumn, the entire valley turns gold. The poplars ignite, the orchards blush, and for a few weeks, Hunza glows as if lit from within. Balochistan Fort crowns the town of Karimabad, 700 years old. Its timber and stone walls rising above the village like a watchtower over time itself. From its ramparts, you can see the full sweep of the valley. Terraced fields falling away toward the river, mountains pressing in from every side. Below it, Altit Fort, older still, clings to a cliff directly above the Hunza River. Where Baltit commands the valley, Altit guards the gorge. Together, they stand as twin sentinels of a kingdom that governed these passes for half a millennium. North of Karimabad, the landscape shifts. Abbottabad Lake appeared in January 2010 when a catastrophic landslide buried the village of Abbottabad, killed 20 people and dammed the Hunza River for months. The water that filled the void is an impossible blue-green so vivid it looks artificial. In winter, the surface freezes into a sheet of cracked ice framed by snow-covered peaks. Beyond the lake, Pasu Glacier descends from the high Karakoram, a river of ice creased with crevasses, its surface dirty and ancient, pushing slowly toward the valley floor. Nearby, Borith Lake sits in a hollow of green-blue water, still and quiet, reflecting mountains that have not moved in 40 million years. The Husseini Bridge swings above the river on fraying cables and weathered planks, a crossing that looks like it belongs in a fever dream. Tourists grip the ropes and inch forward while the Hunza River churns below. It is not built for comfort. It is built because there is no other way across. At Hopa, the glacier spreads wide a frozen field stretching over 30 kilometres. So vast that a single person standing on its edge becomes a speck. The scale is disorienting. Ridges of ice stretch toward peaks that seem to exist at the boundary of the atmosphere. This is where the human story ends and geology takes over. In Hunza Valley, winter paints a different portrait. Pine forests stand dark against fresh snow. Glacial rivers thread through silent valleys. Villages sit half buried, their chimneys the only sign of life beneath white rooftops. The Fanda and Giza valleys wind through quieter terrain, rivers curving past some mud brick villages where mosques stand beside walnut groves. These are places where 1,000 years of mountain life have left patterns in the soil that are still visible from the air. Cultivated plots climb impossible slopes, carved into rock like stairways for giants. Rivers braid through floodplains where wildflowers bloom in spring. Every settlement is an act of negotiation between people and the rock always has the final word. In deep winter, Karimabad disappears under snow. The Karakoram highway narrows to a single ploughed lane. In Upper Hunza, a parked SUV on a white road becomes the only colour in the frame. And at Shimshal, the most remote village in Hunza, the silence is absolute. No traffic, no signal. Just mountains, wind, and the sound of a river that has been carving this valley since before anyone thought to name it. If Pakistan has a secret, it has been kept here. In a valley that the rest of the world is only now beginning to find. Skardu hides behind the Karakoram. To reach it, you fly over some of the highest mountains on Earth, or drive for 2 days along roads that test both nerves and machinery. In autumn, the valley burns gold poplars lining the Indus River like columns of amber against turquoise water. In winter, Skardu vanishes. Snow buries the town, the roads, the tiered farmland. The river keeps flowing a blue vein through white silence. For months, this place becomes one of the most isolated inhabited valleys on the planet. At the edge of Townsom, the Katpana cold desert rises at over 2,200 metres. Sand dunes at an altitude where deserts are not supposed to exist. At this latitude, most of the world is farmland or forest. Here, it is sand. In winter, snow settles on the dunes, creating a landscape that belongs to no category entirely surreal. At Safaranga, golden dunes glow against a backdrop of snow-capped peaks. Women walk across the sand in bright shawls, their figures small against the mountains that dwarf everything beneath them. A lone horseman crosses the ridge, a silhouette that could belong to any century. These cold deserts are Pakistan's strangest paradox, sand and ice sharing the same frame. Warmth and freeze separated by metres, not miles. The Karakoram creates its own rules. Kachura Lake lies in a fold of the mountains, its surface reflecting autumn foliage so perfectly that the water seems to hold a second forest beneath it. Kayakers glide through the stillness. Pedalos drift near a resort where red roofs peek through golden trees. At Lower Kachura, the colours deepen rust and amber surrounding water so clear it reveals every stone on the bottom. Shangri-La Resort sits at the lake's edge, a name that promises paradise and, for once, delivers. In winter, the lake freezes and the red roofs sit in silence above a mirror of ice. Karpocho Fort watches over Skardu from a cliff above the Indus, a stone fortress that has guarded this valley since the 16th century. Below it, the river bends wide and slow, carrying glacial melt from Tibet toward the distant plains of Punjab. The Indus here is young jade green and restless, braiding through sandbars, passing beneath rope bridges strung between boulders that no crane ever placed. Villages line its banks, their layered orchards descending to the waterline. 3,000 kilometres downstream, This water will carve deltas and drown cities. But here, it answers to nothing but gravity and ice. In spring, the valley transforms again. Kaplu erupts in pink blossoms, cherry and plum trees blooming against snow-covered ridges. In Skardu, white cherry blossoms carpet the valley floor. And for a few weeks, the landscape looks less like Pakistan and more like a painting someone forgot to sign. Manthoha waterfall drops from a cliff face into a milky jade pool. A cascade hidden in a gorge that most maps do not bother to name. Higher still, Deosai National Park stretches across a plateau at 4,000 metres. A treeless wilderness where Himalayan brown bears roam and the horizon bends with the curvature of the earth. In the villages along the Indus, places like Qumran, where cattle graze on floodplains and children play beside glacial streams, life moves at the speed of seasons. The mountains set the clock, the river sets the calendar. Nothing here answers to anything but geology and weather. Skardu is not a destination. It is a revelation, the place where Pakistan stops being a country and becomes a landscape so extreme, so layered, so quietly magnificent, that it rewrites everything you thought you knew. The heaven that was promised in the first minute of this film lives here, in the shadow of the world's highest mountains. Pakistan begins with a river and ends with a river. The Indus born in the glaciers of Tibet, winding 3,180 kilometres through gorges, deserts, floodplain and megacities, before dissolving into the Arabian Sea. Every stretch of that river is a chapter. Every chapter contradicts the last. We started in Karachi, where 20 million people press against the coast in a city that never stops moving. We crossed the floodplains of Sindh, where monsoon and harvest answer to the same river. We stood in the emptiest deserts of Balochistan, where the silence is so complete it has weight. We walked through mosques that took empires to build and forts that took centuries to forget. And then we climbed through valleys reclaimed from violence. Along roads that cling to cliff faces by force of will. Past glaciers, past frozen lakes, past deserts made of cold sand. Until the landscape became something that no longer fit any definition we brought with us. Pakistan is not a place of extremes. It is a place of layers, heat and ice, chaos and serenity, ancient and modern, ruin and bloom. Stacked so tightly that peeling back one reveals another beneath it. The contradictions are not flaws. They are the architecture. This is a country that does not ask to be understood. It asks to be seen. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.